In Beijing, there are certain nighttime routes that seasoned taxi drivers refuse to take. Parents warn their children to avoid specific transit lines, and many locals will go out of their way to skip a late-night trip heading toward the fragrant hills. This city-wide caution traces back to a single night, November 14, 1995, when a thick, freezing fog settled over the capital. That evening, the Route 375 pulled out of the Yuanming bus terminal for its final scheduled run toward the outskirts. It was a routine trip, carrying a handful of commuters through the quiet city center. Within hours, this standard piece of municipal infrastructure would be reported missing, sparking a mystery that would haunt the city's residents for the next 30 years. The geography of the route itself is isolated. After leaving the dense urban core, Route 375 travels northwest, ending in the rural, heavily forested hills that border the city. These roads pass directly through old Qing Dynasty territory, cutting across former imperial estates, ancient execution grounds, and numerous unmarked grave sites. Some locals refer to this path as a spiritual fault line. It is a zone where modern pavement intersects with centuries of recorded violence and burial grounds. For the crew and passengers of the 375, the nightly commute meant navigating a landscape where the boundary between a modern city and its darkest historical chapters was practically non-existent. By the time the bus reached the rural stretches, only 4 people remained: the driver, the conductor, an elderly woman named Wang, and a 19-year-old boy named Tong. Through the fog, driver Li spotted 3 men waving aggressively from the side of the road, even though it was the light of the cabin. 2 of them were holding up a third man whose face was completely hidden. All 3 were dressed in elaborate, archaic Qing Dynasty robes, looking as if they had walked straight out of a historical drama. The air inside the bus immediately turned cold. The engine began to strain and whine, as if struggling to carry an immense, unnatural weight that hadn't been there a moment before. The history of the surrounding hills had moved from the roadside and into the enclosed space of the vehicle. As the bus moved, a draft caught the strangers' heavy robes. Wang looked down and saw that the men had no legs. They were hovering inches above the floorboards. Wang didn't panic. Instead, she suddenly lunged at the 19-year-old boy next to her, screaming that he had just stolen her purse. She created such a violent disturbance that driver Li was forced to stop the bus. Wang dragged the confused boy out into the night, demanding they settle the matter at a police station. Once the bus pulled away, she told the boy the truth. They went to the local precinct, but the officers laughed off the story, telling the woman she was likely just tired and seeing things in the fog. Wang's staged confrontation provided the only window for escape, leaving her and the boy on the curb as the bus disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, the bus company reported Route 375 missing. It had never reached its final destination, and no trace of it was found along the 100-kilometer route. 2 days later, the bus was finally located, submerged in the Miyun Reservoir, nearly 100 kilometers away from its intended path. Inside, divers found 3 bodies: driver Li, conductor Mei, and an unidentified passenger. Despite being missing for only 48 hours, the remains were in a state of advanced decomposition, appearing as if they had been dead for months. Investigators were baffled to find that not a single CCTV camera along the highway had captured the bus on its 100-kilometer detour. It was as if the vehicle had traveled the distance without ever appearing on the road. Most confusing was the fuel tank. The bus lacked capacity for such a massive trip, but when mechanics opened the tank to check the levels, they didn't find gasoline. It was filled with human blood. The combination of biological decay and the forensic anomalies in the fuel tank ensured the story of Route 375 would remain an unsolved fixture of Beijing's urban history.